Every year, millions of kids participate in youth sports. Youth sports is a great way to get involved in something at a young age. However, a recent trend in youth sports has arose. The intensity in youth sports has increased rapidly. Due to the increase, certain problems have risen within the youth sports world. With these certain problems coming to light, parents question whether this increased level of intensity and competition is good for the children. The problems that have become more apparent in youth sports today are injuries seeming more common, one sport specialization, crazy parents and coaches, and the overemphasis of athletic identity. Injuries are common and inevitable in youth sports. It is something that is sometimes uncontrollable. Ryan Hedstrom and Daniel Gold of Michigan State University wrote that 48% of youth athletes get injured while playing sports. Fortunately, 65% of those injuries are minor. However, they state the causes of preventable injuries are poor nutrition, lack of coaching education on injuries, and not training properly. Another cause of injury is what British Journal magazine called burnout, which is when an athlete simply is just doing too much. The overuse causes chronic stress from repetitive motions that are necessary in sports. The perfect example of burnout is with pitchers in baseball. The repetition in throwing a baseball with the same motion leads to injuries on a pitcher's throwing arm and can ultimately shorten a pitcher's career because of it. Overuse injuries are also very common as athletes try and play through injuries that they shouldn't, and the minor injury that they had turns into a nagging, reoccurring injury such as a pulled hamstring or ankle sprain. These injuries are preventable by knowing when to be taken out of a game because you shouldn't play on an injury that could become worse, and also by taking the time off by stretching to avoid your certain injury from reoccurring. Due to the amount of competitiveness and intensity that has increased over the years in youth sports, a big question that parents of serious athletes face is to have their child keep playing many different sports throughout their childhood, or have them stick to one sport and specialize in it. Joseph Baker of Queen's University provides arguments for both sides, as he provides support for mastering one sport by stating something as he described as the 10-year rule. This rule is about the hypothesis that in order to master a specific sport, you need to focus and train only on that sport for 10 years. The belief is that deliberate practice over extended periods of time is essential to mastery. And on the other side of the spectrum, he argues that it is essential for children to expand themselves in many sports, and argues that many athletes do not focus on the mastery of one sport until the ages of 16 to 18 years of age. He states that you can get great results from being diverse in sports at a younger age, as many professional athletes played multiple sports even up until the end of high school. With that being said, you can be successful going either way. However, there are many different things that are applicable to multiple sports, so the technicalities of a single sport may not be fully polished for a young child who plays multiple sports. However, the motor skills that apply to many sports such as jumping up to catch a ball and being aggressive are beneficial and can carry over to the majority of sports that a child would choose to specialize in. One of the biggest problems in youth sports today isn't the kids competing, but the parents and coaches who are on the sidelines. They push too hard, care too much, and parents can have a tendency to make it about them by living their life through their kids. Michael S. Rosenwald of the Washington Post raised the question of are parents ruining youth sports? He states how the entire system of how youth sports is structured to only benefit the top tier of athletes through elite club-level teams with advanced players and coaches, and the ones that are not as talented are left behind in recreational leagues with poor coaching, uneven play, and the message that they are not good enough. As Mark Hyman, who is a professor at George Washington University, states, the system is now designed to meet the needs of the most talented kids. We no longer value participation, we value excellence. Rosenwald goes on to state how the biggest problem is the parents. parents of the athletes push them hard and invest in expensive club teams and believe this investment will lead to a college scholarship. Parents also make it all about them by trying to one-up other parents through expensive equipment they get for their kids and the competition level that their kids play at. However, Rosenwald provided a way to fix youth sports by putting a bigger emphasis on recreational leagues so the kids that are not elite club level athletes won't be left behind in recreational leagues that will not help the kid grow and improve. Athletic identity is when someone defines themselves through a sport, such as a football player finding his personal identity in being a football player. Dr. Chris Stankovich of Ohio State University explains how athletes take pride in being an athlete, and it can be positive in identifying yourself with a sport to an extent. However, these people that define themselves through sports also have a tendency to do it too much, and that's when he says athletes tend to have identity foreclosure, which is where athletes tend to focus on their sports identity and close themselves off from other things in life. He states how if you close yourself off as just an athlete, then you are unable to expand yourself in other things. He states this by saying, most athletes who have prematurely foreclosed on being an athlete will need to eventually completely redesign and overhaul their athletic identity, something that is far easier said than done. With only about 5% of high school athletes playing in college and 2% of college athletes playing in pros, it's easy to see why premature identity foreclosure for athletes may lead to serious consequences. Stankovich isn't out to bash youth sports. However, in the article, he wants the athlete to not fully define themselves through a sport, so kids are able to become more well-rounded and not focus on just one thing in life. Although problems have gotten bigger in youth sports, at the end of the day, it's all about the kids going out, competing, and having a good time. These problems of crazy parents and athletic identity can be fixed through letting the kids go out and compete in the sports that they love. As the competition rises, the kids will get better. The fixing of recreational leagues in general is also necessary so the kids that are not as advanced are not left behind. Regardless of these problems, kids will be playing organized sports year after year.